How's it going, guys? So I recently finished up the big custom project on my Benjamin 392 air rifle. I've had this gun for a few years. When I got interested in air guns again, this was the first gun that I bought. And unfortunately, I don't think these are available anywhere now with the wood stock. Crosman still makes 392 and 397 with a plastic stock, but that, in my opinion, is just a terrible mistake. I don't know what they're thinking there, but I don't think you can get the wood stock ones anymore, which is a shame because it's a really nice rifle. I enjoyed it quite a bit for the years that I had it without really doing anything to it except putting the Williams sight on it, which it comes drilled and tapped for. But I wanted to do some things to it to improve the look of it and the performance to some extent. Internally, as far as the function of the gun, the main thing that I did was what's known as the two-spring mod to the valve, which I have a video on my channel of doing. It was pretty hard to find information on how to do that two-spring mod, and as far as I know, that's the only video out there on it, so you can check that out if you're interested. Did some modifications to the trigger parts inside of the gun. Cut the top part off of the trigger that comes up through here, so now the gun can be decocked. Most obvious major change is I got rid of the trigger guard completely. I made a new one out of brass, totally fabricated by hand out of some brass bar stock, and that now attaches to the stock with some brass wood screws. And it had a crossbolt safety on there, which now of course is completely gone. And so now basically decocking now functions as the only safety on the gun, which maybe is not the greatest thing for like a hunting rifle if you're going to do air gun hunting, but for a plinker it's fine. You could hunt with it really, but it would be a little slower and also potentially a little louder to do that rather than just flick the safety off. But I really hated the appearance of that ugly trigger guard and safety, so I cut it right off. Made that new one, which I think looks awfully nice. Reshaped the entire stock. As it comes, there's like a big bulge on the pump arm, which they claim is to make it easier to pump. I actually found exactly the opposite. It pumps easier. I feel like I get a better grip on it, and it's easier to pump with the slimmer stock. Slimmed all of this down as well. I kind of took down the top of the buttstock here to a narrower edge, so it has these contours here where the grip goes down into the stock. More like a classic rifle stock, basically. And that came out pretty good, except for the appearance of the finish on the wood. I'm not super thrilled with, but it's okay, I guess. They say that beech is a hard wood to stain, and whoever they are, they're not kidding, because that's basically the issue that I ran into. Is there's patches where the stain just doesn't look that great. Some spots came out real dark, but it's not too bad. And the final finish I did with linseed oil, so over time that should kind of darken up and look a little bit better. Also kind of squared off the end of the pump arm there, so it's more like the older guns. This is basically the direct descendant of the old Sheridan rifles, the Sheridan Blue Streak and Silver Streak, which were some of the coolest air guns ever made, in my opinion. Really wish I had one. Anybody out there has a Blue Streak, in decent shooting condition, or even if it doesn't hold air or something, I'll trade you a knife for one. Not even kidding. Get a hold of me. But anyways, while I'm yakking here, pump it up and do some shooting. I usually just do 4 pumps when I'm plinking. Bullseye. And as I was saying, it does pump easier, both from the 2-spring mod. I don't think I got around to mentioning when I was talking about that. The purpose of that is to make it easier to pump. And it does somewhat, although it makes a bigger difference on earlier pumps than it does when you get to 8, which is the maximum. I think it is easier on 8 pumps than it was, but not necessarily an enormous difference, but every little bit helps, because the air pressure in there is really the thing. You can maybe tell the difference in the report there from 8 to 4. It actually has a better feel and sound to the shot now after my modifications on it, and I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, but I think partly has to do with the adjustment of this little cam plate on here, which has to do with the way that the bolt seals into the breech of the barrel. You have like a little locking lug, I guess you could call it, on the bolt, which is just a little screw in there, and that, when you close the bolt, that kind of comes up against that cam plate and seals it. And I think maybe it seals better now, just from having taken it apart and put it back on there. And of course, I've stripped the black paint off of it. Now it's a nice brass finish. With that brass finish on there and the brass trigger guard, it kind of has the appearance of some kind of really old gun to me now. You know, you don't see anything made that way anymore. But and also this last bit here, this is actually part of the cast zinc trigger housing, which the original trigger guard was a part of. It goes down through the stock, and which has a black finish on it. I actually got some Rust-Oleum metallic brass colored paint and spray painted that one part there just to make it blend in better, and it came out pretty good, I think. No scratches or anything on it yet. Could have I maybe could have found something with a little bit of a better match if it was a little more yellow. This one, I think the color was called Gilded Brass. Maybe there is a more regular brass one out there somewhere that would be a more exact match, but looks alright, I think. But it's a fun rifle to shoot. Also did a bit of a trigger job on it, polished up the parts of the trigger and sear that you know, rub on each other, and where the sear grabs onto the hammer. And I've got the Williams sight on there, and since I finished all the other stuff, I was shooting this the other day, and I took the aperture out of my peep sight, so now it's more like a ghost ring, and I find that I like that a lot better. I found that sometimes when I shot this gun in bright light, which mostly would happen on a couple of occasions when I was shooting rats around the chicken coop, if I have bright sun behind me, I go to look through the sight with that small aperture in there, and I just can't see through the sight. It's too small. It makes like a really, in my vision, looks like this big, huge, thick black ring with a little tiny hole through the middle, whereas with this, in pretty much any lighting condition, it's pretty good and just as accurate for my purposes. So there's that. The Benjamin 392, one of its kind. I call it the Golden Boy. Always like to finish off on a good 8-pump one. Got him.